Okay, so today we're going to talk about the 7 habits of highly effective online instructors, borrowing very heavily from Stephen Covey and his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the point of this is to help us all get connected with the community. So first of all, at the end of this presentation, I hope you can walk away and say, I'm going to use the community. I like the community. And second of all, that you'll have a better idea of what it means to be a leader with our students in our classrooms and with each other in the community. Those are the 2 goals we're going for with this presentation. And we're going to talk about what it means to be a leader, a small L leader, not a big L leader of the classroom. So basically, we heard about this morning from President Gilbert. The idea is that we are disciple leaders. We're training disciple leaders. And he referred to the talk from President Eyring in Temple on the Hill. This quote, when I've taught GS 120, this quote is used in GS 120 from President Clark. Well, he's Elder Clark now, but he was President Clark then. And he said, "It is our great privilege and our mission to prepare the wonderful students of BYU-Idaho to be disciples of the Savior and leaders in their homes, in the church, and in the world around them. Leadership development, therefore, is a critical partner to disciple preparation in the lives of our students. The leadership I have in mind is leadership with a small L, leadership in the home, the ward, the community, and the workplace. Please note we have written discipleship and leadership in lowercase letters. This effort follows the pattern of leadership the Savior taught. He wasn't the president of the country. He was a leader in small ways. The Savior is the great exemplar of small L leadership. Leadership that serves and ministers, loves and supports, and blesses other people. This is the type of leadership we seek to develop in our students. And we can't develop this in our students if we don't have it ourselves. I will say that we wouldn't have this ourselves. We wouldn't be teaching. We wouldn't be in this room today if we didn't already have, if we weren't already on this trajectory of becoming disciple leaders as people. But hopefully we can talk about some ways to fine tune that within ourselves and improve it within ourselves as we go through. So the Covey connection, just to talk a little bit about this. If you are not familiar with his work, you probably are and you just don't know it. If you've read this book, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't read the book, that's okay. I'm sure you've heard these 7 habits before. We're going to do a really abridged version of his ideas. But in a nutshell, he talks about principle-based leadership, and rather than, there's a lot of different other kinds of leadership, but he wants principle-based leadership and character-based leadership. Rather than selling the world on our good looks and personality, we want to focus on our character. And we ourselves as members of the church would call this our Christ-like attributes. What are we? Who are we? What are we trying to become? That's way more important than what we can talk people into or all those other leadership type tactics. We also want to him, it's hugely important to keep in mind the balance between our production and our output. And we can definitely apply this to our work as instructors. There's all of the output, the things that we're trying to do, the tasks, but what is our production capability? Are we building our capabilities, or are we only focused on the output? Got to get all the assignments graded, got to interact on the discussion board, or are we building ourselves? He gives the goose and the golden egg analogy and threads it throughout the entire book. If you've got the goose that can produce 500 golden eggs a day, awesome, but then the goose is going to kill over and die, right? We've got to nurture the goose and keep the goose healthy and have a reasonable expectation of output with the product. So the PPC, he calls it that throughout, and I will refer to it a little bit, but think about that in terms of ourselves as instructors, and think about our students too as well. And then he really says we need a paradigm shift. As we look at leadership, we have to say, am I basing my leadership on, he gives a myriad of different models that we're not going to go into, or am I basing my leadership on principles? And we're blessed to teach in an institution where we do base our leadership and our interaction with students on principles. And that's the paradigm shift we're after. He also, and I love this, he says people matter most at the end of the day. This is very much in harmony with what we do at BYU-Idaho. It's about the students. They matter the most. And it's about each other as colleagues in the community. We matter to each other. People matter. It's not about pushing an agenda or getting something done. People matter. So, yeah. Okay, and then also just beginning defining terms here. What does he say a habit is? A habit is the intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. What do we know? What are we going to do because of what we know? And how are we going to do it? And do we want to do it? And as we develop all of those things, that becomes, a habit. Okay, so here's his upward spiral. Has anybody seen this upward spiral diagram before? I love this visual for life. It relates to so many things, but I think it definitely relates to what we're doing in our work as online instructors. I love, for me personally, how it applies to just the gospel. You know, we learn principles, we learn doctrines, we learn truths, and we come to feel that they're important, but that doesn't matter until we actually live them and apply them and do them. And then as we do that, then we feel more powerfully how they work in our lives. And it's just this upward spiral of progression, right? As we, build this, we can see that going. So hopefully we're going to do this with our work in the community as well, so that we can become these stronger instructors as the years go by, with more capability and more effectiveness. So the question to ask here at the bottom, I don't know if you can read it or not, am I ready and open to a paradigm shift regarding my view of the online community? And hopefully by the end of this hour, you will be, right? But I'm guessing maybe you signed up for this class because you already like the community. Just by show of hands, who already is like a huge community fan? And don't feel bad if you're not, because my husband, I love him and he's not. Okay.
I'm the anti-example.
He said I should say that. He gave me permission to say that. So a few of us love the community. Who came because you're like, well, I'm somewhat interested in the community and I maybe need to get a testimony of it? Yeah, a few of you? Okay, good. Yeah. All right, so that's where we're headed with this presentation. So when we say the community, what do we mean by the community? The community is so many things. Right here, we're in a super large teaching group meeting, part of the community right now at this conference, which is, I think, one of the highlights of the community, this conference. We also have OL 200, that training course. Any head nods? You know what that is that I'm referring to? Yeah? Okay, and there's tons of other training resources in the community. We have our teaching group spaces. We have our teaching group discussions. We have our teaching group meetings where we meet together synchronously. We have forums and blogs on the larger community. Under featured content, if you were to click on this pull down menu under featured content, you can find some of those. There's this conference, I already said that. There's Tuesday devotionals. You can get online and chat with other instructors during that devotional. So many things. This is the community and more. So the launching page for the community looks like this, and there's this gray navigational bar. If you haven't been yet to this little welcome place, I would encourage you, we won't take time to do it here, but I would encourage you on your own to go to this little welcome place. Scrolling further down on this page, there's a 5-minute video that's fantastic. We're not going to take 5 minutes to watch it in here, but I invite you to watch it on your own. It's an overview of the community and everything that's available in there. What I'm talking about in this presentation, I'm going to share some examples, and they are the tip of the iceberg of my personal experience in the community. Somebody else could give this presentation and share the tip of the iceberg, and it would be completely different than what I'm sharing. And just know that there is a wealth of information hiding in here for us to discover. And if you watch that 5-minute video, it'll give you a pretty good overview of how to navigate and find different things in the community. Okay, why engage in the community? This is from our handbook, which is in the community. You can go to OL 200 to find this instructor handbook, and hopefully we refer to it often in our work, and not just when we were doing the training course, but it's something we can use to help us as instructors in an ongoing way. Remaining informed is part of your role and responsibility as an online instructor, as is your responsibility to participate in the online community as an active member of the BYU-Idaho online instruction family. We have a contractual obligation to be in the community. We just do. So no other reason than that. It's part of our responsibility. It's what we signed up for when we accepted these jobs. So yeah. According to Covey, when we engage in something new, who's here is new to online instruction, like you've been here less than a year or so? Just a couple. Okay, so who's been here like 2 years or less? Just a couple. Okay, and who's been here like more than 3 or more years? Quite a few. You guys should all be giving this presentation. Okay, but for the new people, I feel new because I stepped into a new role this year as a teaching group leader, and it all feels new again to me. And so I'm definitely in this place of dependence on my area instruction manager, my AIM. And but if you're new, then maybe you feel that dependence a lot. And so then we move to independence, and hopefully we don't stop there once we figure out how to do our job. Hopefully we move to this place of interdependence where we help each other and teach each other and nurture each other. Okay, so here I am with some dependence on my AIM, Bonnie. I send her emails and questions and ask her a lot of things and help me with this, and I'm not sure about that. And she does it. She's so loving and kind and helpful and nurturing, and always has answers and always has just so much sympathy for me, and I am very appreciative of her. And I hope that each of you feels like you have that kind of relationship with your teaching group leader, that you have a built-in friend, somebody in your corner, somebody who can help you out. If you don't have that relationship, I would encourage you to nurture that relationship and just reach out. And if it's really not working, you know, say something to somebody. There's always that place on the bottom of your weekly reflection to indicate if there's something that's not working for you. But I love that we have this model that's built in with this support and nurturing in our community. Okay, so then we figure out how to do the community, and we do it on our own. Easy enough. I know if there's certain things I want to use, and I know how to find them in the community, and I go link it out to my students, and I've used the community, and it's great. I'm fulfilling my duties. But hopefully there's more. When we get to the place of interdependence, then that's the community at its best. Then it's working like it should, I think. We all strive for a place filled with competent, qualified, sharing professionals who come together to synergistically build the work and grow ourselves. We're a community of colleagues. We serve one another, we work together in an effort to better serve the students at BYU-Idaho who go forward from here to better serve in their families, communities, churches, and callings. And we can learn how to do this for our students if we're involved in the community. And I'm going to give a lot of examples. We're going to go through the 7 habits now, and I'm going to give examples of how this happens, this interdependence that we have in the community. Okay, number 1, be proactive. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. This is from Aristotle, quoted by Covey. As we develop these habits, we're going to become excellent. We're going to become effective instructors. So you've heard this word proactive, right? It's just part of our lingo now. But as we think about being proactive in the community, the first example I thought of that we all have in common is this transition to iLearn 3.0. Who's already working in iLearn 3? Oh, many of you, that's great. And who's anticipating that transition this fall? The other half of us. Okay, so we're about half and half split here. So for those of us who are anticipating it, and those who are already there, maybe you guys are there too, I don't know. Just quick show of hands, have you gone to the community yet for help? Those of you who are already there? Yeah, little head nods, that's good. The rest of us, are we putting our heads in the sand saying, it's coming, I don't want to go there? Or yes. Yes. Okay, I invite you, Janet, to be proactive. We can be proactive, and there are resources in the community to help us prepare for this fall, for this transition. There is in this this gray navigation bar under Help Resources, there's a thing called iLearn 3 group. And it takes you to this landing page, and this landing page is all about iLearn 3. And there's discussions, there's FAQs, suggestion box, like if you have things in iLearn 3 that aren't working, you can put them in the suggestion box. Help guides, all sorts of stuff. There's no reason why we need to put our head in the sand and be scared. We can jump in and train ourselves and network with colleagues. If we're, some people like to figure things out for themselves. That's their way of learning. My husband and I, we are just, you know how you marry people and you're like the opposite? He totally can jump in there, and I was surprised to learn at the breakfast this morning, he's already like in the boot camp training and he's doing it. I'm like, what? I didn't know that. I, of course, will be putting it off until August probably, but because we're polar opposites. And he will teach himself, and then I will get taught by him. But hopefully we have colleagues, if we don't have a built-in tech support, that we can network with. If we're the type of person who likes to learn from people, hopefully we have networking people in the community that can help us, that we can say, I'm really confused about this, help me out. That's what the community's for. So that's one example of how we can be proactive and develop that in the community. Number 2, begin with the end in mind. This is really important. And I think that we do this in the gospel. We have the big picture. We're very blessed to have that big picture view of things. So as we think about specifically our job at BYU-Idaho and what are my roles at BYU-Idaho, what do I want to achieve here? Hopefully we want to be excellent, effective online instructors. When we applied for this job, I don't know there's probably as many different reasons for having signed up here as there were people in this room. We've all got our own reasons. So I'm gonna ask you now to just take 30 seconds and say, what are my roles at BYU-Idaho, and just jot on a piece of paper for yourself, what is it that I'm here to do? And this can be specifically with students. Obviously, we all have shared roles like facilitating discussion boards and giving feedback on assignments. But are there specific things, if you've ever developed a personal mission statement or a personal ministry, if you've reflected on that, jot some of those notes down. Give you about 20 more seconds to just make a little list for yourself. We'll just, if you wouldn't mind, raise your hand and share with us what you wrote down. What are some of the roles that we're here to fill? And we may not all have the same answers, and that's great. Yeah.
I want to instill, it's one of my own goals, but instill lifelong learning with my students.
Good. Yeah. Get them excited about learning. Yeah.
Foster the spirit of Elijah.
Cool.
I teach
What do you-
family history.
Awesome. That's a great, and that's a personal ministry kind of thing. That's awesome. Well, maybe it's part of your class objectives too, but yeah, Mary.
Well, I was thinking about with writing, so really I want them to develop confidence in their writing
Yeah.
and to feel like to develop high standards for themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. What else? Yes.
Learn to work together.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, that's a great role. Anything else?
To believe in themselves and the abilities they already have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really see myself as a mentor.
Okay. Mentor. Yeah. For who?
Well, I teach at Intro to Marriage and Family Studies, and so we do a lot of career exploration.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like my role isn't to deliver content, but to encourage them to explore job
Good.
possibilities.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Any other roles here? Yes.
Everything to the Lord is spiritual. And
Yes.
so being able to foster that secular learning of the spiritual learning, I think, is another important part of what we do.
Good. Yeah. So that role to connect the content to the gospel. Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna say this clearly, because I didn't write it down. Because I'm holding an apple. But, together with my students, reinforce and accept and act on our mutual role as saviors of each other,
Yeah.
saviors on Mount Zion.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? I think we could keep going with this. I would ask us to consider, as we're thinking about this paradigm shift during this session, do we have a role as a colleague? Is that one of our roles? One of the hats we could fill? Covey talks about in his book, at the beginning of this chapter, he says, if someone were, think about your funeral. Who's going to be speaking at your funeral, and what do you want them to say about you? What do you want to have? What is it you're trying to achieve in this life, and is that what people will remember you for? And maybe we wouldn't necessarily have a BYU-Idaho colleague speak at our funeral, or we wouldn't have a BYU-Idaho student of ours speak at our funeral, but what would be said of us? What difference have we made for them? And that's something to think about. So mine isn't.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Begin with the end in mind. This is awesome. This is one of my favorite quotes, and this is so unique to the community. I'm just going to read the whole thing. I know it's long, and you probably heard it before, but just ponder on it in terms of the community. Another way to say that we can be effective and embody is that we're going to embody this and convey the spirit of RICS in our online classrooms. The spirit of RICS has long been the hallmark and defining phrase that describes this remarkable institution. The spirit of RICS suggests the spirituality, the desire for obedience, the personal caring, the warmth, the humility, the modesty, the friendliness, the genuine concern for others, the bright smiles and cheerful hellos, and so many other elements that make this university an unusually inviting and supporting and nurturing institution. The phrase of the spirit of RICS speaks to the commitment, to the sacrifice, and to the integrity of so many who have helped to make this institution what it is today, and what it will ultimately and inevitably become in the future. If the day should ever come that the phrase the spirit of RICS and its connotations were lost from the vocabulary of Brigham Young University, Idaho, then something fundamental and foundational would be absent from this institution. You will find many definitions for the spirit of RICS, but today I would like to reiterate the definitions I came to understand during my service here at RICS, in Rexburg. The spirit of RICS is the Holy Ghost and its attendant spiritual gifts. Online instructors at BYU-Idaho should understand and support the spirit of RICS and seek to bring this spirit into their online classrooms. And that last sentence is really it. How are we going to bring the spirit of RICS into our online classrooms? We're not going to go to Amazon and find a book about the spirit of RICS. We're not going to go to other websites about online instruction and find techniques we can use to bring the spirit of RICS into our classrooms. The only place, somebody correct me, because some people, the only place I know of to find and learn about the spirit of RICS is in the online community. This is it. If we're going to do this, and this is a pretty important thing that we're supposed to do, we got to be in the community. And I would say, go back, one more thing to say about that. Sorry. I would say the only way that we can do this is by being examples to each other. Covey says that there's, 3 ways to teach people. First of all, example. Second of all, example. Third, example. So and I have seen this example in the community, the spirit of RICS example in the community. People who are loving and nurturing and helpful, bright smiles and friendly faces and cheerful hellos across the internet waves. And it's there in the community for us. And then as we feel that in the community, we can convey that same feeling in our classrooms to our students and help them develop that with each other, so then they can convey it in their homes and with their families and in their wards and their communities. And okay. Number 3, put first things first. So maybe you've seen this quadrant before. It was very popular in the 80s And it was like back when we all learned that it was okay that even though the phone was ringing and it was urgent, it was maybe not important. Maybe it was more important to just keep eating dinner with our family and ignore the phone, right? We learned that we could do that. And so as we think about this in context of our classrooms, our online classrooms, there are plenty of things that are urgent and important, and they get most of our attention, as well they should. What are some of those things that are urgent and important that we do? Grading. Yep, we've got that 7-day deadline. It feels pretty urgent most of the time for me. And definitely it's important. Students need feedback. What else is in that first quadrant?
Well, emails are more important than grading because they need to
Student
hear back from
questions.
you in 24 hours. But
Yeah.
grading, you got 7
7 days. But 24 hours, yeah, the emails are urgent and very important to get right back on those. What else is urgent and important?
I'd say as a TGL, relationships with like emails from the other
Oh, yeah.
teachers
Mhm.
or phone calls or texts, that they're having a question or something, I need to talk with them as soon as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Ben?
Prayer.
Prayer. Oh, I think you're moving into this, but I'm glad that you see it as that, because I think many of us would be surprised. It's not written into our contract that you will pray before you start, although maybe it should be, right? But that's great. I like that. I would say it's not necessarily as urgent as the things that we're expected. We don't have to report on it, you know what I'm saying? That's my point, but I'm glad you mentioned that.
But he also does a banner on his notes that says, be sure you pray before you start this course or this lesson or this. I think that I've had students remark on that because I copied him.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. I hope we are encouraging our students to pray and that we are praying. And that moves us over to this quadrant, which is the one that Covey says we need to focus a lot on. What's important but not necessarily urgent, because somebody's not checking up on it or it's not part of whatever, but we know it's the right thing to do. We know it's the good thing to do. Yeah.
I learned 3 fixes.
Okay. Yes.
Sharpen the saw.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. That's actually is number 7. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You know, you can probably teach this, right? I don't know. That's cool. Yeah. Celeste. Oh, I thought you had your head up. Okay. Yeah. So as we think about, go back to where you wrote down your role, my role here at BYU-I, and the things that you wrote down. What is it that I need to be doing that I'm not expected to do urgently, that is also equally as important? You know, if I had to pick what's one thing I would do that would be of tremendous benefit to be able to accomplish my roles, it's probably not something that's urgent, but it is really important. And so the community gives us a place where we can take a break from the urgent, important things and focus on the non-urgent, important things. We're never going to be highly effective and highly excellent instructors if we don't focus on those important things that are not necessarily urgent. Okay, the 4th habit is think win-win. I love the community for this. We heard from President Gilbert this morning, and we've heard it before. It's an important part of what we do here, that this is a place of educational innovation. When we think about innovation in terms of education, what does that look like? We can learn about it from each other in the community. I have someone in my teaching group right now, and she says often that there's been this long history of education where the teacher has all the power and the students are like these underlings who must succumb to the teacher. And it's not a good model. It's actually not helpful for teaching and learning to have that kind of a model. So I'm grateful to be at a place where we're trying to switch that model up, that it becomes more a place of teaching and learning across. It's a more of a sideways relationship. Yes, we do ultimately, you know, hold students accountable for things. But hopefully the way it's built into the classes I teach, and probably the classes you teach as well, they are accountable to themselves. They do their weekly reports as well at the end of the week. And they grade themselves in some instances. In one class I teach on the discussion boards. So when we think win-win, we're finding places and ways that we can have an abundance mentality, where building that relationship with a student is more important than, you know, being right or whatever. And we're utilizing our community of colleagues. We're changing our thinking and changing that role that we have with students. And it's nice to be part of where that's happening. So here's just one example. Oops, no, I'm going to tell this example in my head. I didn't have a slide for it. Okay, so when I first started working here a few years ago, it was a pathway class, and there are these gatherings that they go to, and there is the issue of attendance at the gatherings. And the students write in, I'm sorry, I don't feel well, I didn't go to the gathering. Can you excuse me? And then we are in the place of making a judgment call of, you know, is this excused or not? I have to go to a stake training meeting. Can you excuse my gathering attendance? And so I was like, you know, like many instructors going, what do I do with this? I went to the community And Tori Black, who's one of the wise people in the community, if you don't know who she is yet, anytime you see her name, read it. It's probably good. I'm sure it is. Anyway, she had made a post about what do we do with this gathering attendance policy stuff. And she said, here's how I handle it. There are the clear-cut cases of, yes, of course I'll excuse you. You were in a car accident on the way to the gathering and ended up at the hospital, excused. Or, you know, you have the sniffles and you didn't feel like going. Sorry, it's not excused. You just lose the points. That's okay. Or there's the gray area ones that she says, honestly, I'm not sure about. And she said, that's where I put it back on the student. And I say, you know, I hear what you're saying. Here's what you're saying. Here's the policy. What do you think I should do? And then she invited the student to reply. And that became a win-win situation because the student got to make that judgment call. And she didn't use that in all situations, but as she prayerfully considered this is a place where I can use that, it became a win-win situation with building that relationship with the student. So I was grateful for that little piece of advice in the community. Yeah.
An example of abundance mentality is we often feel we have to grade on a bell curve where you have to have a certain amount of C's and B's.
Yeah.
But abundance mentality that I promote at the beginning is that everyone can earn an A.
Yeah.
Everyone. I don't have to create a bell curve for.
Yeah, that's another educational idea that doesn't necessarily need to apply anymore. Yeah, I like that. Thanks for that example. Okay, now we're moving on to number 5. Fifth habit is seek first to understand and then to be understood. And Covey talks so much in his book about nonverbals as we communicate and how important nonverbals are. How difficult are nonverbals in an online environment? They're hugely difficult. In fact, we have to completely change how we think about communication when we're online instructors. Short of getting on a video chat or something, or the telephone even, I don't even think those are as effective as in-person communication, and we simply don't have that option. So we have to find new ways of communicating that are going to be effective. We can turn to the community for this. Just to define terms a little bit, Covey says we have to start from, as we go into a communication situation, we have to start from a place of character and not, you know, with ill intentions. It's not going to work if we do that. And then as we develop empathy and listening techniques, and he says they're skills, it's things we can learn to do, but it has to be first be grounded in a real desire to communicate that's real. Then it works. And then finally, after we have listened and we have understood and we've communicated that we have understood, then we can communicate what we have to say logically. So an example of this that I think we can all relate to, maybe the next slide, is, oh yeah, okay, I already talked about that. So let's look at the community for one example. And this is in the featured content tab here at the top. And then I clicked on, you know, when this comes down, I didn't take a picture of it because it would block this, but there's a little black thing and there's one that says working with students. And then I clicked on working with students and then contacting students. And so then it pulls up a bunch of related, oh, this is a blog or discussion maybe about responding to angry student emails. And maybe if you haven't had an angry student email, that's good. But if you have, this is a really helpful blog post, because how do we respond? And so this I followed because I like to follow lots of them because I need all the advice I can get. And I read through it, and the person who wrote the post had a really good suggestion about how to do it. And then what developed was like 3 pages worth of discussions of other people who'd had experiences. I think it was 25 or 26 posts. And about the middle of the discussion, Shauna Dorman said, hey, I came up with this template for how to deal with those kind of emails that are hard. And I got it from Sarah Jackson in the community years ago. And for those of us who weren't in the community whenever Sarah Jackson first shared this, we say, thank you, Shauna, for pointing us back to that and sharing this little, it's a little checklist of sorts. And yes, we need to come from a place of caring, but sometimes it's good to have a checklist to make sure, okay, first of all, did I thank the student for expressing their concerns? Did I express, restate their concern? Did I ask questions to get any clarification about things I might not have understood? And then you can just go through, did I calmly and logically explain? And if I'm not feeling calm right now, did I step away from the computer for a few hours and then come back? And then did I invite the student to ask me any other questions or any other concerns? And did I end on a high note and express sympathy and how much I enjoy that student in my classroom? And it's a great template. And this is in the community. So yeah, this is a great way that we can really use a hard thing, which is communicating, but use a skill set that will help us to communicate online with students. All right, so the 6th habit is synergize. I love my OCR groups. everyone has an OCR group. Do you know what OCR stands for? You feel free to give me blank stares if I should explain this a little bit more. Head nods if you're with me, blank stares if you're, okay. Okay, OCR stands for Online Course Representative. And each course has an online course representative, a person, and then also a group, a discussion group that is led by that person. And in this course-specific place, we get to discuss things that relate to our course and ask questions of each other and learn from each other and help each other. And so I'm going to share an example from English 106 that was just last month. And it was super cool to see how this synergy came about. Bryn, a teacher, I know where I was in a teaching group with her before, posed a question. A student had emailed her and said, I'm taking these grammar quizzes. I keep getting things wrong. I don't know why I'm getting them wrong. Why can't you tell me why I'm getting them wrong? And, you know, Bryn, like all of us, is very busy and doesn't have time to go through each and every quiz and say, here's why you missed, you know, their computer scored, right? So here's why you missed this one, and here's, you know, she just doesn't simply have time. I understand that. You know, and so the discussion developed and people were sharing ideas, and it's a very legitimate concern, and it definitely addresses student needs. And then it came up that there was this one instructor, an English 106 instructor, who had made it her SMART goal to develop little template things she could send students on their quizzes. And then Marin got in there and said, well, maybe we can get, you know, Courtney, maybe you can share this with all of us. We can get you some contract hours to get this developed. And it's kind of taken off that maybe because this one student had a question and this one instructor posted it to our OCR group, thousands of students are perhaps hopefully going to be benefited with template, you know, kind of here's why you missed this question responses because of the OCR group. And I think that's pretty cool synergy that we put our heads together and came up with something better because of the discussion. So, yeah. And this is a picture of Bryn's post. Yes.
I get that too with some math problems, and you know the tests or the quizzes are graded automatically.
By the computer.
They say, why did I miss number 5? And I'm like, oh, number 5.
Right, exactly.
But a lot of times I'll say, can you rephrase what part of number 5 you didn't understand? And I can, in some cases, go and look those questions up, and that helps. But it is challenging because they seem to think that you know, you got all the test banks and all the answers and you know everything. And
yeah. So, but this is the great thing about these courses is that we do have these OCR groups where we can say, hey, these are, you know, this is maybe a piece of the course that could be refined and enhanced with some help for the students. Yeah. So I love this is just showing you where we can go to our groups. Janet.
Well, and I think a lot of students that take online courses think brick and mortar for us.
Right.
I had a student jump on me for the way the course was designed, you know, about this and that, and so
you have to help them understand the whole role and where we report those problems, and that we will submit fixes as needed, and
Lisa, just a quick clarification too. A lot of OCRs, you are the OCR and the only instructor, and you're it. You're your
one
team.
section class.
Of course, you have a course lead to work with, but yeah, you won't have a space in the community for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I teach in the big sections, I guess. Okay, so habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. So then you've got the larger, going back to this, so then you've got the larger community, and you do have your course counsel with the course lead. But hopefully, if you don't have an OCR group, you are more engaged in the larger community. Okay, so sharpen the saw. I'm just going to read this. This is how Covey starts this chapter of the book. Suppose you were to come upon someone in the woods working feverishly to saw down a tree. What are you doing, you ask? Can't you see, comes the impatient reply. I'm sawing down this tree. You look exhausted, you exclaim. How long have you been at it? Over 5 hours, he returns, and I'm beat. This is hard work. Well, why don't you take a break for a few minutes and sharpen the saw, you inquire. I'm sure it would go a lot faster. I don't have time to sharpen the saw, the man says emphatically. I'm too busy sawing. Okay, yeah, we all go, well, come on, buddy, just sharpen the saw and it'll go faster. It seems pretty easy. But how often could we do this scenario? Suppose you were to come upon someone in your teaching group working hard in their class. What are you doing, you ask? Can't you see, comes the impatient reply. I'm facilitating my online class. You look exhausted, you exclaim. How long have you been at it? Over 5 hours, he returns, and I'm beat. This is hard work. Well, why don't you take a break for a few minutes and look at the online community, you inquire. I'm sure it would go a lot faster. I don't have time to look at the online community, the man says emphatically. I'm too busy teaching. Okay, anybody guilty of this? You don't have to raise your hand. But I think that the idea here is that when we are doing this 5 hours of really hard work, we're like pushing out those 500 golden eggs, right? and we're on the fast track to burnout. And the way to pull back from that and to build our production capabilities is to go to the online community and sharpen our saw and develop some skills and learn from one another. And as we do this, we're going to be more efficient, actually, and it won't take us 5 hours. With a sharp saw, it doesn't take 5 hours to cut down one tree, right? Then we're more efficient because we've gone to the community. So as we look at our time each week, I want to preface this with, this is me. This is not a prescription for anybody else. This is what works for me. Okay, so we all have our own contractual obligations to fulfill, and that's up to our own stewardship. But this is what I do. I look at my contract and I say, okay, I'm teaching a 3-credit class, and that's approximately, 9 to 12 hours a week. Say if I pick 10, because that's a nice even number to do math on, and 15% is supposed to be of my university citizenship, then that's 1.5 hours, right? So if I'm going to spend half of that time doing my weekly reflection, responding to emails and all of that, that leaves me with maybe about 45 minutes that I have to spend in the online community each week. I can do that as 10 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days a week, and sometimes I do that. I get that daily digest thing, and I think we're going to have time at the end to show, by raise of hands, who gets that daily digest at 5 o'clock where you get an email? Nobody? 1, 2? Wow, we're definitely going to do that at the end. It's like gold, you guys. It just shows up in your email, and you're like, these are the discussions I'm interested in following, and so I'll just read through a few of those for 10 minutes. It doesn't take longer than that, but it keeps me up to date and getting new ideas on discussions and topics that I'm interested in. Sometimes I do it 15 minutes, 3 days a week. I don't do it every day, maybe. Or maybe one week I just take 45 minutes creating a blog post I want to share with my teaching group. And then I, craft it and do a little research and pull in this and post it for my group, and then maybe facilitate it a little bit. And that's where I spend my time in the community that week. The power for me has come as I've made the community a habit. It's just something I do each and every week. It's not that I wait till the end of the month and say, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be in the community. I better quick go find a discussion I can add something to. And this is a question, too, to think about. Okay, when you go to the community, how do you get there? Is it because you get a link from the home office on Monday morning? Is it because your teaching group leader sends out a link? Is it because you have it bookmarked? Is it because you have the address memorized, the website address? How I'm just curious. And there's no right or wrong answer, I'm just curious.
My TGL sends a.
The TGL sends a link? TGL sends a link?
All the above, but I love the Monday morning.
I do too, yeah. Okay, so variety. Often we go there because we get a link. Going back to the proactive thing, as we build this into our mindset and our mentality, as we choose to go there, okay, I'm gonna do this. I like the, like I said, the digest thing. I like the links that take me in, but if I'm looking for a specific thing, how do I know how to get there, right? Either we have it bookmarked. If you just go off of a link to go there, it's kind of a maze to figure out where you really want to be if you're linked into your teaching group space, but you want to find a training resource. Clicking around can be a little cumbersome. So I would encourage us all to take some time to be proactive and figure out how to navigate to the community on a regular basis. Put it in a bookmark, put it in a favorites or whatever you want to do so that you know how to get there regularly. Okay, and if you're like, where do I start? This is kind of overwhelming and I'm not sure what I want to do. I would say start with your teaching group. It's a small group, it's colleagues, it's friends. Hopefully you get to know them because you have these meetings together and you have these discussions together and you can build each other and work with each other and build those friendships in a meaningful kind of ongoing way. Get to know some people. So it's not just like random people that you feel like, there's 1,100, 1,200 of us now. I don't know anybody. Well, yeah, you know 8 and you can get to know 8. And then after that, move to your OCR group if you have one. That's people who are focused specifically on what you're teaching. And then use the training library videos. I don't know if you use those or not, but they're a great resource and they're in the community. And for me, this is kind of the hierarchy of like what's important to me. When I have things for students, like I have a student email me who says, okay, I kind of have like a D right now and I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to pass the class because it's, almost the end of the semester. And I'm not a math person, so I say to them, go to the community. Here's this what if calculator tutorial. Let me send this to you. You go ahead and take a look at your grade. Use this what if tutorial. Come back and let's talk. What's your grade going to be this semester? And then let's talk about what can be done. Putting a little responsibility onto them and using a resource from the community. Another one that I like to share with my students along about week 6 or 7 is the teacherless classroom. Have you guys seen that video? Some head nods. If you haven't, you should. It's very funny. the teacherless classroom.
Teacherless.
Yes. And so I thought if you just go to that search bar in the community and type in teacherless classroom, it'll pull up. And I send that and post it in my discussion boards for the students, and I preface it like this. I say, do you think I'm the kind of teacher who sits around chugging 2 liters of Shasta and eating pie while I teach your class? And then that gets them intrigued enough to watch the video, and then we have a discussion about it. And they usually kindly say that I'm not that kind of teacher, which is good. Yeah. Anyway, so there's those resources that are in there for us to enhance us as teachers, to help our students ultimately, to make our classrooms better. And we don't have to do all the legwork on it. We just go get the resource and share it. Okay. Browse the larger community. There are blog posts. There are forums. Like I mentioned earlier, the iLearn 3 stuff is in there. Sign up for the daily digest. And we'll do that in about one more slide. If I think my really awesome tech guy will be able to help us out with that. And then follow posts that interest you. Do you know how to follow posts at the bottom? Maybe not if you're not doing the daily digest, but anyway, you click follow if there's something that you want a topic that you're like, oh, I want to see where this goes. I'm curious about it. And then join the conversation. Ask questions, share ideas, link to outside resources that you think would be useful to other instructors. And you know, if you're not sure that you have the time, energy, or brain space to add one more thing, believe me, I get that. We all have really full lives and things in our lives outside of BYU-Idaho that honestly are higher priorities, like our families or our church callings or things that that's okay to have those higher priorities. As we develop ourselves as effective, efficient online instructors, we'll have more time for those priorities. We really will as we sharpen the saw here in the community. So I would consider, if you feel like I can't do one more thing right now, that's okay. Think ahead to the fall, be proactive, plan. Begin with the end in mind, and with that habit of beginning with the end in mind, you know, we can think in terms of a semester because we have our SMART goals, right? And for this semester, I want to work on adding technology to my class, or I want to work on adding more faith into my feedback, and pick something really specific. And there's resources in the community. And for myself, I set the goal one semester. I'm not a tech pro, of saying, okay, I've got to figure out how to do more technology. And so I went to the community for that semester, and I found out how to do video feedback for my students. And I found out how to link pictures for a video link for my students. And I learned out how to do surveys and things that for me were kind of hard. But I was really grateful for all the resources in the community that helped me to do that. And that was my SMART goal. And there's plenty of SMART goals that you could utilize what's in the community to help you achieve those objectives. Okay, so then when we go to the My Groups page, and we'll have time, you're logged into the community on you, or what time are we done, 20 after?
You got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. All right, so we're gonna do that real quickly, but if you wanna log in, let's do our last slide, and then if you can log in on yours. Oh, opposing arguments and personal experience, we're gonna skip those. My husband's the opposing arguments. We'll do them in 30 seconds. Okay, what if you just say, this is redundant for me, I already know, I mean, he's a professional, he's been working in the field of education for a lot of years. I'm a part-time person, he logs a lot more hours than me, so I need the community more, right? And so you could say that, I get all this, but is there a reason for him to go? I guess the argument would be, the flip side would be, you know, the spirit of Rick's, you can't get that anywhere else professionally. And the whole idea of helping our students to become disciples leaders, you're not going to really find that anywhere else. Also, the idea of giving back and becoming a colleague to others and building the community and developing that interdependence and that synergy that is going to make BYU-Idaho greater, and we're going to add to that. So Elder Ballard.
Throw in that.
Sure.
You mentioned that our teaching groups are part of the community. There's 4 of us from our teaching group in here, and they're in here to support Alisha. Because they know her through me.
Yeah.
And isn't that awesome?
It is.
It's just so cool. And so the teaching group is definitely where I have thrown my energy, but I'm gaining a testimony of the larger community here.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I say too?
Yes.
Even if like he's my teacher group leader. Even if you're like the expert, and I am the shameful person that needs to be in the community, but the expert is the one that's needed.
Yeah,
Everybody else
absolutely.
is going there.
Yep.
So it's not, I'm not going there because I already know all of this. That's why you need to go there, because.
So you can share.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for saying that, Heather. Okay, we'll end with Elder Ballard and then take a quick jaunt over to show you how to do the digest. When we act in a united effort, we create spiritual synergism, which is increased effectiveness, or achievement as a result of combined action or cooperation, the result of which is greater than the sum of the individual parts. And I fully believe that this happens for us in the community. What we come up with is greater than me by myself and this person by themselves. It's, not just 1 + 1 = 2. I can't remember if I said this in this group or not. When you present things back to back, did I already say this? Anyway, it's not just 1 + 1 is 2. It's not even, Covey says it's not even 1 + 1 is 5. It's not even 16. It's like 5,000. As we come to the community with the 1,200 of us, wow, there's so much untapped power in this group to do good things. And I hope that we will do that because Elder Ballard believes it can happen and we all know it can. So I leave that with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.